When I first built this racing sim, I had one question. How real can I make all of this feel? I went from buying the most expensive ultra-wide triple monitor setup to upgrading to the best VR headsets on the planet, and each step felt crazier than I could have imagined. But today, we're going to the next level. Now the first thing we're changing is this seat, which I cannot wait to upgrade. I've never liked this thing since the moment I've put it on. It's too wide, it's like really cheaply made, it like creaks now. The mold as well just seems a little bit off. And it's not like we're pulling any G-forces in this rig, but there are simply better bucket seats out there. And this is the new seat. It is the ES1 from Next Level Racing, and you can see the upgrade, right? It's a pretty obvious difference. I don't know if it's just me, if I'm just super excited about trying a new racing seat. But yeah, everything from the shape to the materials to the posture when you're actually sitting in the seat as well, it is a massive difference. And it is so much better. Honestly, I'm kicking myself that I didn't do this much sooner, because I've done a quick test fit and it feels so much better to sit in. There's only one problem though. The mounting brackets for this racing simulator don't actually line up with this seat, which I honestly thought would be the case. It does like friction fit and squeeze into the rig quite nicely. It's a kind of satisfying fit, but yeah, as soon as I activate some pedal force, as you can see, we can't be having that. But luckily, I got one of these. More specifically, a 3D scanner. This one is the Creality Raptor Pro, and with this, I can scan the racing sim, scan the mounting points, and within about 5 minutes, I've got a usable 3D model. If I didn't have this, I'd have to hand measure all of the different points, create rough models of those, and honestly, I'd probably get them wrong. The only inconvenience is having to apply the surface spray and the tracking dots, but you can do that pretty quickly, and the spray also evaporates after a couple of hours. But yeah, this feels like a massive cheat code for my workflow. The fact that I can just import the 3D model and start making some mounts, it is almost too easy. In Fusion 360, I played around with a few different approaches, including a generative AI design, which did not work, but I ended up making one mount for the front, one mount for the back, and then one also underneath, which holds the seat at a slight angle. This is my first time modeling mostly from T-splines as well, which is a lot more of a freestyle kind of 3D modeling method. It was a nice little opportunity there at the very least to improve my skills, and in the end, I will say they turned out pretty good. The cool thing about 3D scanning is that everything is actually very accurate. I'm still kind of blown away how well everything fits together. The ultimate question is though, are they strong enough? And thankfully, yes. I can actually do like a honest max effort leg press on this thing, and the mounts don't even budge. In fact, this seat with these custom 3D printed mounts feels stronger than the stock default seat that I had in here. That thing would creak and flex all the time, but this thing feels really locked in. I also like how the nylon carbon fiber filament looks like it came with the rig. It has that kind of rough powder coated finish with it. I am going to reprint these ones on the rear here, which were printed with PETG, but yeah, very happy with how these came out. This next upgrade though, I've been told is one of the most immersive upgrades that you can do to a racing sim, and it's called the butt kicker. It's basically what the name suggests. In a normal car, you get a lot more information and feedback through your hips and your lower body than you might expect. Losing traction in the rear of the car, for example, or hitting a curb. All of that is information and vibration that should be felt in your lower body, and it's basically what this is trying to achieve. So we've got some cables, we've got a massive amplifier as well, but the main component is this thing right here, the bass shaker. This thing attaches somewhere on your racing sim, preferably on the back of the seat, and literally shakes it. It says the frequency response is between 300 Hertz and 5 Hertz, so right in that deep sub-bass range. Yeah, I don't know whether to be excited or scared. So we've got the amp right here, we've got a bunch of cables which are tucked underneath the racing seat, and then we've got the butt kicker right here. I will admit, it's more of like a mid-back kicker, the way that I've got it mounted right here, but hopefully it still feels okay. I did have to 3D print this mount here because there was like nowhere else to mount it here. These tubes on the rest of the racing sim were way too thick, and there is nowhere I can mount it underneath the rig. So yeah, hopefully this doesn't feel too weird once we get to actually driving. Oh, I never thought I'd spend 2,000 euros on a brake pedal for my racing sim, but here we are. This is the Simucube Active Pedal Pro. It is the slightly more affordable but still painfully expensive force feedback pedal. This is the brake pedal that I was using previously, which is comically smaller in comparison, and that is because it is a passive pedal. It's got a spring, you've got a couple of elastomers. You can swap these components out to change the brake pressure, but there's not a whole lot else you can do here. The reason this is so big and it's so expensive is because it is actually controlled by a motor on the inside. It actually functions a lot like a direct drive wheelbase, where the motor is responsible for the force feedback and all of the vibration that you feel. So yeah, I've heard this thing actually punches out a lot of feedback under heavy braking, and it's something I cannot wait to test out. It is though absolutely massive. Dude, take a look at the size of this compared to my throttle, which is right over there. And that, by the way, I still will be leaving completely passive, so just a spring. I've heard that active pedals aren't, super necessary for the accelerator or the throttle. Simucube themselves actually sell a kit with the throttle still being passive. So yeah, hopefully this mismatched setup doesn't feel too weird. Also, the amount of cables that I now need to run this rig, I mean, dude, it is getting out of hand. Don't even ask me what is what anymore, because I honestly have no idea. And we still have one more thing to add. So this has to be one of the coolest things that I've ever 3D printed. Ducted wind simulation with Noctua fans. First is the hub where the fan slots in, and then we've got an intake and exhaust vent which magnetically attach. Has this really cool floating look to it, and again, 3D scanning came in absolutely clutch here. A quick scan of the top of the rig, and I was able to make these the exact size that I wanted. A large scoop that sits underneath the monitor with a narrower funnel at the end, speeding up and directing the air towards the driver. Maybe the coolest thing though is that they actually spin up as your speed increases in the game to properly simulate wind. There are a few guides out there on how to do this. For me, I've used 5-volt Noctua NF812 so they can be powered straight off of an Arduino. I've heard a lot of sim racing enthusiasts rave about how much wind simulation can add to driving immersion, especially in VR, so I just had to try it. But did any of these upgrades even make a difference? I don't think I'm going outside ever again, because with a racing sim like this, man, do I even need to. Let's talk about the butt kicker first. This thing really impressed me. I had no idea what to expect, but now that I've driven with it, I don't think I can play without it. The mounting especially turned out to be, pretty decent, especially for simulating gear shifts. I think that's where it's like really excelling. Every time I slap into a new gear, upshift, downshift, I feel like a massive punch in my lower back, which, I mean, without it, you don't feel anything. It also simulates the engine RPMs, the tire slip. I mean, you can actually go in and fiddle around with all the different values and ramp them up and ramp them down depending on what you're after. I did have a little fiddle around with it, but it kind of ended up feeling a little bit fake and artificial the more I played with it. I think I've just got everything on 50% at the moment. The seating position, not a whole lot to say there. I mean, we've kind of tested it out a little bit already, but yeah, really love this kind of bucket position. I feel like my hips are kind of just brought in a little bit more. My shoulders are kind of squeezed in like a proper racing bucket seat. But yeah, overall, the rig is feeling really comfy. The pedal as well. Simucube Active Pedal, oh my god. I mean, I knew it was going to be good for 2,000 euros, at least I hoped it would have been good, but holy crap, they really thought of everything that you could do with this pedal. The braking force, for example, from 5 kilos all the way up to 110 kilos. I've been playing with it kind of around like 35 to 40, that kind of seems semi-realistic to me, but also, pretty comfortable. But you can also change the force curve of the braking. So some cars out there might have a braking force that looks like this. I'm sure if you understand this stuff a little bit more, maybe you're like an actual race car driver and you kind of want to be really specific about simulating a certain brake pedal feel, I mean, you can definitely create like whatever you are after. But then you scroll down a little bit and that's where things get really freaky. I mean, Dude, the things that you can do with this pedal, again, they literally thought of everything. This is not going to be like an in-depth review of the active pedal. I'm sure there are much more capable drivers out there who can explain this stuff better than I can. But I mean, the stuff that I have turned on, I've got it simulating the traction control. I've got the ABS ramped up quite a bit because I do like how that feels. And then the motor vibration, so simulating the rumble of the engine, you can actually feel that through the pedal. Even with this really basic software setup though, oh my God, this pedal feels absolutely out of this world. You can see there, the pedal is kicking my foot off of it with the ABS system, preventing that lock up. But then even like stuff balancing mid-corner, trail braking, everything just feels so insane with this pedal. I'm not about to say it's worth 2,000 euros. It is a goddamn lot of money. But yeah, it is a really impressive piece of kit. But then I put on the VR headset and it changed everything. All of these upgrades felt 2 to 3 times more immersive and impressive than before. The only way that I can explain it is that when I was looking at the monitor and the rig, I was still cognizant of all of these individual parts and what job they were doing, but throw on a headset and it truly feels like it's all one single piece. The active pedal and the bass shaker now somehow feel like they're firing in sync, and the wind simulation felt way more convincing. VR with these upgrades is a completely different world. I know it sounds insane, but I could almost now feel the balance of the car mid-corner with all of this new feedback, something that was completely missing before. With all of the granular detail and texture that you get from the bass shaker and the active pedal, you can properly feel the true limit of whatever you're driving, compared to without them, where you kind of just have to purely rely on your wheelbase and visual cues on the screen. By that time, it's kind of too late. I think I am finally done upgrading this thing. The only thing that I have not done yet would be like a motion system, which actually pivots the rig depending on, steering angle and stuff like that. I don't see too many actual sim enthusiasts using them though. I don't know, maybe some people can let me know down below if they're actually good. They are seriously expensive though, so I'm kind of hoping they're not good. I might add another bass shaker towards the front of the rig, and I might upgrade the throttle to an active pedal as well, because that active pedal I was seriously impressed with. But otherwise, man, this thing is feeling pretty maxed out.